Betterfrost is developing the next generation of eco-friendly, energy-saving refrigeration and ice management systems. We have the founder Kazi with us today. Thanks for joining in, Kazi.
Thanks, Naman. Nice to be here.
So, just to get started, could you tell us what exactly are you building at Betterfrost Technologies?
Yeah. So actually, to take a step back, it's what we're building is a novel de-icing system that can remove ice, frost, snow from
Okay.
almost any surface at a fraction of the time and fraction of the energy of typical systems. Um, so when we say we're building refrigeration and ice management systems,
Right.
refrigeration has been sort of the first industry that we've gone into,
Okay.
but our focus is a lot broader. Yeah, so as I mentioned, we first went into the refrigeration field,
Right.
and then our current focus is actually in more automotive,
Okay.
where if you live up here in the north, you know how annoying it is to have to go out in a winter morning and scrape your windshield clear or brush off the snow, or
Right.
turn on your car and wait 20 minutes until everything clears and then you can drive off.
Right.
What we've developed more recently is a pretty cool, nifty technology that at the press of a button can de-ice that windshield in about 30 seconds or less.
Okay.
And we're partnering with a multinational supplier to automotive companies to start bringing that to various vehicles.
Okay, so consumers can directly install this in their vehicles, or this would be like a pre-fit sort of technology?
It would be a pre-fit technology that would go into a car, and it would essentially replace all the the vents and stuff that you have in the front that currently blow hot air to defog your windshield or defrost your windshield.
Right.
It would replace all of that with an integrated system.
Okay. And are there like any other advantages? I suppose there are other advantages apart from convenience here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's three advantages. One is obviously the convenience factor for the driver. The second, and we tested this out recently, is actually the energy savings in an electric vehicle.
Okay.
So because it's so much more efficient than typical systems,
Right.
we found out that using our system actually uses 1/20th the energy or the battery power of
Right.
defrosting and defogging a windshield.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, you end up with about 20 kilometers more range in the winter, which ends up being a lot for electric vehicles.
Right.
And then the third piece is if you think to the future, right now you go out and you're cleaning your windshield, etc. But as the cars become autonomous, you have robo taxis that are driving around. Who's cleaning their windshields? Who's cleaning their sensors?
Right.
Who's cleaning their windows?
Right.
So that's where having an automated system where all of that stuff can stay clean, and these automated vehicles can keep driving in the winter in the middle of a blizzard.
Okay.
So that's a key value proposition, because we are sort of allowing autonomous vehicles to operate more safely and more effectively in the winter.
Interesting. Have you been talking to these manufacturers already for inculcating this technology in their vehicles?
Yeah, absolutely. And we are actually at an interesting point of time now.
Okay.
If you think about 5-10 years ago, it was really like Tesla and maybe a couple other car companies
Right.
that are doing electric vehicles, autonomous, etc. Now every single car company is announcing, essentially every week there's a new announcement of a new electric vehicle model coming out in the next couple of years.
Right.
So we are at this sort of time where all these models are being designed and built, and so we're actually in discussions with quite a few of them about putting this technology into their vehicles.
Okay. And what prompted you to touch base with your material science background and start a clean tech business now?
Yeah. So yeah, as you mentioned, I studied material science in university,
Right.
but right after graduation, I decided not to sort of go down the engineering route and go like focus more on the business side. Ended up doing consulting, getting my MBA, etc.
Right.
And as I was doing that, I did find that I loved being in business, talking to people, figuring out business problems,
Right.
all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, academically, I was still kind of interested in science and engineering. I'd be reading, and in my free time, I'd be reading popular science articles and watching videos about engineering, etc.
Right.
So even though I was working in business and enjoyed doing that work, I found my sort of interests in my mind, sort of in other things. Few years ago, I had transferred to do a year abroad in Amsterdam.
Uh-huh.
And as we were coming back, it was kind of decided to do a career pivot and move into something that's more interesting and more meaningful to me.
Right.
And that's sort of when I started looking around. I remembered, hey, I remember this technology that was invented when I was in university. Wonder what happened to it.
Okay.
And it just so happened that year was also my university reunion. So I ended up going back and talking to the team that had developed it, and like many cool technologies invented in universities, it had stayed in the lab. So it felt like a really interesting coming together of my business experience,
Right.
my engineering interests, and a technology that I was interested in and passionate about.
Right.
So that sort of bringing all those together is how Betterfrost was born.
Okay. That's inspiring. And you have been in the clean tech space for 5 years now, I guess. So how do you think it has changed or evolved during this time?
Yeah. I've been working with Betterfrost for just under 5 years, but even before that,
Right.
I was working in the solar industry and with photovoltaics, etc.
Uh-huh.
So really been sort of involved in the clean tech space almost for 10 years now.
Okay.
And the change is pretty amazing. And I alluded to part of it earlier. If you think about electric vehicles,
Right.
5-10 years ago, it was maybe nothing, maybe Tesla and a couple of others talking about it.
Right.
Fast forward to today, every car company's bringing out electric vehicles. Countries are putting time limits on combustion engines, etc.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about solar energy, 10 years ago, it was sort of rising,
Right.
often driven by government subsidies and feed-in tariffs. But
Right.
now in many areas, it's actually the cheapest form of energy you can get, like grid
Right.
parity and better. So I think what you're seeing is a real maturity coming into the industry as things are less about let's try something, maybe it'll work well, etc. It's there's actually robust, mature companies and industries in the space. And in terms of the support and the ecosystem, that has gone along with that change.
Right.
5-10 years ago, it was a lot of startup support, etc. But now, even looking at Mars or any of the other sort of ecosystem or support systems, it's a lot of focus around scaling and supporting more mature companies and mature industries.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what has your biggest learning been in this space? Like there are a lot of these new age clean tech startups that are coming up these days. So if you would have to give advice based on your experience, what would that be?
I think the biggest learning, and maybe it's an obvious point, but it was sort of the most interesting point to me.
Right.
Is there's often a story that's told, and often by politicians. It's that there's this false sort of balancing between doing good by the environment and saving jobs and
Right.
all of that. It's you hear things like we can't sign on to the Paris Climate Accords because that'll cost jobs, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And as you spend time sort of in this industry and ecosystem, and you look around and you sort of really see how false that is.
Uh-huh.
There's so many companies that are profitable. They're not just trying to live on subsidies or do good. They're actually profitable companies creating new high-paying jobs that are doing great things, and there's no sort of tension between,
Right.
do we trash the planet, or do we help the economy? You can actually help the economy and help the planet at the same time.
Okay.
And so that being the learning, if I think to what advice would I give, to your second question, it's really that remember that if you're trying to start a clean tech business, don't forget that it's still a business.
Right.
So all the same things that make a business successful make a clean tech business successful.
Okay.
Solving a problem, product market fit, etc., etc. So no matter how good your technology or service or whatever it is, until you find your product market fit and find that you're providing a solution to someone who's willing to pay for it,
right.
It's not going to be a business that's successful.
Right.
But if you are able to find that fit, and if you are able to be successful, you are then doing good by doing well at the same time.
Right. No, those are some great points. It's always good to learn from someone who has been through that journey. So thanks for sharing all those insights. And lastly, Kazi, so I wanted to understand, like, in terms of the future for Betterfrost Technologies, like what lies ahead for you guys, say in terms of industries or customers or products for that matter. So what can we expect, in next, say, 2 to 3 years timeline?
Yeah, right now we're pretty focused on the automotive industry, as I mentioned. We have a really cool technology that increases convenience, increases the range of electric vehicles, and is the perfect solution for autonomous vehicles. And given where that industry is going, that's where our focus is, because we really feel that our technology could become an indispensable part of sort of the winter driving experience. Similar to seat belts are for safety, or ABS is for safety.
Yeah.
You're going to have to keep your screens and sensors clear of ice and snow if you're going to drive, or if you're going to have autonomous cars driving safely in the winter.
Yeah.
So that's really our focus in the immediate term for the next couple of years. We've, as I mentioned, partnered with a large multinational supplier to these car companies,
right.
Who essentially have as customers all these car companies, and so we're going out with them to provide this solution to their customers. Awesome. At the same time, we're doing some work in the solar industry, in the wind generation industry, because if you think about, at least in the north, if your solar panels covered with snow, right, or your wind turbines are all iced up, they're not creating electricity. Right. So by incorporating some of our solutions into those, we're hoping to improve their productivity as well.
Right. I saw some of your videos, like pretty convenient technology for everyday users, especially here in the north. 4 to 5 months your cars are covered with
100%. I think our biggest issue is actually when we try to talk to customers or investors who are in California to have them understand our problem. But anyone I talk to in Canada or northern US or northern Europe immediately gets it.
Right. Well, thanks a lot, Kazi, for sharing all those insights. Like, this is definitely a great technology. I think how you've balanced, convenience for the final customers, but taking care of the planet at the same time. And as you mentioned, like, it's a business at the end of the day. It's a clean tech.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a business at the end of the day. So thanks for sharing all those insights, and all the best for your future.
All right. Thank you, Naman.